Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight in Tunisia, over 600 people have been arrested in a week that's seen anti-austerity protests taken to the streets. Also, in Nigeria, the long-standing rivalry over land between Fulani herdsmen and farmers has already claimed more than 80 lives this year. Dozens are buried in Benue state as the government faces calls for them to do more to stem the violence. And we're joined by an Afro-Iranian musician who says that his Zanzibari roots are an integral part to his creative identity. We're joined in the studio by Saeid Shanbehzadeh. But first, in Tunisia, political, union and business leaders say that they'll be meeting this weekend to discuss the recent anti-austerity protests. More than 600 people have been arrested this week after days of clashes between demonstrators angry at the introduction of new tax hikes at the start of the year. Many say that it's just exacerbating the inequalities at a time when poverty and unemployment is on the rise. Chris Moore is in Tunis and tells us more.
Well, Yasminet Ben Arous is one of the Tunis suburbs which has seen overnight clashes. Shops and businesses have been damaged. People say they do understand young people's anger, but they're not happy with the way it's being expressed.
I think the young people's anger and their demands are legitimate. But what I saw on Tuesday and Wednesday were people who came to loot. Young people with no parental control. They are not protesters. Why do they do this? That is not how you defend your rights. It is true that life is hard and people are finding it hard to make ends meet, but this isn't the way.
Yes, we do have problems. We live under difficult conditions, but it's not a reason to start looting and to wreak havoc. These people are wrong. They should have protested peacefully.
Well, activists have called for further peaceful protests here in the centre of Tunis. They're worried that the scenes of violence have harmed their cause.
I think that we shouldn't have to justify what they're doing. People should know the difference between the protesters and the looters. They're acting mostly at night, and there is no police presence.
Well, whether or not this latest wave of discontent subsides is anybody's guess, but the underlying economic problems which have caused it are unlikely to be solved anytime soon.
Well, thousands of mourners took to the streets in the central Nigerian state of Benue on Thursday to watch the burial of 73 people killed this year in attacks blamed on Fulani nomads. The mass funeral in Makurdi highlighted the heavy toll taken by the bloody rivalry between herdsmen and settled farmers. Clashes between the communities have seen a spike recently. Sam Ulukoya tells us more about why the clashes keep escalating.
One of the key reasons for the escalation of this crisis has to do with climate change. These herdsmen are coming from the northern parts of Nigeria where the weather is getting drier, the land is getting drier as a result of drought, and they are moving down south where farmers are staying. So there's a clash between these two forces in the middle belt of Nigeria. That is why we're having these clashes happening.
But has anything been done to accommodate the herdsmen's needs in terms of looking after and preserving their way of life?
Well, I think that is the source of the conflict, that some people argue that this their traditional way of life has no room in the modern day society. People cannot live somewhere and come and get into people's farm. What the government did was to tell them that they should restrict their activities to a particular place, and they argue that by their way of life, they should be able to move and allow their cattle to graze anywhere at all, and that essentially is the source of disagreement as to whether the herdsmen should have the right to move anywhere and allow their cows to feed, or they should be confined to a particular place and they don't move beyond that location.
Senegalese neighbours of the late French singer France Gall have spoken to our correspondents of their fond memories of her. She shot to fame in the 60s after winning the Eurovision Song Contest and was 70 when she passed away last weekend. Gall had a home on the island of Gor, near Dakar. Locals say that she forged strong ties with the community.
Nowhere else in the world could I get home in 3 minutes by boat, France Gall used to say of Ngor Island. Several months a year, the singer made this little island off the coast of Dakar her home. Her house sat quietly at the end of a winding lane. Here, she was more than a celebrity. She was a friend and a neighbour. Seen as one of the locals, she whiled away the hours at one of the island's restaurants, Chez Sec.
Whenever she came on holiday, she would spend the first week at home and dedicate that time to her home and herself. She hardly ever went out. Afterwards, she would come out and say hello to everyone, and that's a sign of respect and consideration because we think of her as a sister. It's a huge loss for us.
Much loved by the residents of Ngor Island, France Gall is described as a gentle, discreet and generous woman. Abdoulaye Diallo, a painter, was a friend of the singer. Together, they created an association, Friends of Ngor Island.
France never hesitated to buy a lot of musical instruments every time she came to Senegal. And in the evening, she'd gather everyone who was still around and share her meal with them. She'll be missed by the young people of the village. The whole island will miss her, and so will all of humanity.
France Gall devoted a lot to Senegal, particularly in Ngor. This kindergarten, located across the bay, dedicated a building to her after the singer financed several classrooms in 2007. She's warmly remembered by the staff.
That's why she came here. She loved children so much. When she left the island and arrived at the beach, all the children would run to see her because she was tender with them. She was kind and generous with the children. We're sorry for the loss, but it's God's will.
30 years ago, France Gall also paid homage to Senegal, her home from home, in Babacar, one of her all-time hits.
And now to another creative whose outlook's been shaped by his links to Africa. Saeid Shanbehzadeh is an internationally acclaimed Iranian musician and dancer. He also traces his ancestry back to Zanzibar, and over his long career has incorporated African influences into his work. His last album was called Pour Africa, which means Son of Africa in Farsi. He's currently banned in Iran, but we're lucky enough to have him on Eye on Africa. Saeid, thanks very much for coming in to see us.
You're welcome.
Why is it so important for you to be identified as Afro-Iranian, and how has that affected your inspiration for your creativity?
Because it was the reality, but we forget it. A lot of us, the black Iranian, we was forget because we didn't have any history, any books that are written about this, and we don't know how the black coming in Iran. And for me, when I did the research, and when I was never thinking why my mother last name is Pour Africa, why our music is different than the other part of Iran. Even in our city, our music in my area is different from the other part. Why? And most of them we are black. And all this question, it was something that's, finally I understood there is one system that they said to my grandparents that you should forget your past, you should forget your identity, and after you are welcome to new society. By the force, by the power, it was the power. Mm-hmm. And I tried to do the research on myself, why I am like this, why I do like this, why I dance like this, why I play like this.
So it's clearly a very important part of your sound and your creativity as an artist.
Yeah.
We're coming to an end of the bulletin, so I don't want to deny the viewers of a little taste of what it is that you do. You brought a variety of instruments with you. Please show us what you do.
The story of this research is to start with this instrument. It's called bouk, and we had 3 of these in our area, and but no one knows this instrument is coming from where. And I discovered it's coming from Cape Town. And this is very important instrument in culture of South Iran. not only, and only it is in black area. What they call it, they say it's all. This instrument is called bagpipe, and this is the very old Iranian instrument.
Well, we'll ask you to play us out of the show with the bagpipe. Thanks very much for watching us, and we'll leave you with the sounds of Saeid playing the Iranian bagpipe.